Let's try this again. All right, so I'm going to be streaming about how to do Chicago-style paper formatting, um, specifically targeted at university, college, high school students. However, hopefully there's something of value in here for someone else. This is all predicated on um, your instructor or your grader using the standard Chicago style. And I really recommend that if you do plan on using this for a paper, you reach out to them prior to just following my instructions because they may have different requirements. This is also for Word on Windows, so there's some hotkeys, some shortcuts that I use that may not work on Mac. I don't know how Mac works. So, but to start off, as you can see, I've got an open Windows document here. I'm going to just open a new blank document, and let that load in. While that's loading, I'm basing everything here today off of, beyond my own expertise. I use the Chicago Manual style, the actual book, which is a big, beefy boy here. This is unnecessary for anyone other than people who are really interested in style. I'm in the 4th year of my PhD now, and so I got it a couple years back. It's proved quite useful for me, but it is overkill for most people. In terms of a better guide for most students, I recommend to everyone to pick up Mary Lynn Rampola's A Pocket Guide to Writing and History. This is by far the most useful book you'll pick up if you do Chicago style, generally. This is the 8th edition. I've got like 4 or 5 editions of this. This is an excellent, excellent book. I can't recommend it highly enough. In terms of just writing generally, which is not necessarily connected to Chicago style format, but is relevant here, William Strunk and E.B. White's The Elements of Style is a useful guide if you really want to be active about improving your writing, not just improve it by practicing. And so that's a useful thing to consider picking up as well. So what I'm going to do is we're going to set up an actual Word document so that you can start writing your paper. I'm going to show you how to do everything from title page, citations, page number, bibliography, and a little bit of formatting for the actual contents of the document itself. But we need to start out with the title page. Actually, we need to start out with font. So the standard font for Chicago style is Times New Roman 12-point font. Double spaced generally, although that is very dependent on the instructor and the grader. But double spaced, I think you'd probably be safe with. On your title page, what you want to do is have your title and a whole bunch of other information. It's centered in the page, and generally, there's a few different views on this. In the Chicago Style Guide, I believe it's all together. I can't remember which page it is, but I know in Mary Lynn Rampola's book, the title is separate from the actual demographic information, your name, your student number, etc. So that is more of a preference of the instructor or the grader. Personally, I put them all together, but I'll show you what that looks like. So what you want to do is you need title. Generally, you have colon subtitle. So whatever that is. Now, the way that I've always done it is next line down would be my name. That's not how I spell my name. Armstrong. Or other, like Rampola's guide has it separated. That seems like a preference thing to me. If it was one of my students doing either form, it's fine. As long as the information's there, I don't care for my students how it's actually laid out on that specific regard. But the information you need is the same. So title, subtitle, first name, last name, student number, which I do not remember mine, not that I would necessarily put it here anyway. You want to do the course code. So course code, the instructor, which I usually just do Dr. So, and so whoever it is. If they don't have their doctorate, or you don't want to use that, you can go Professor so-and-so. Again, that's dependent on the specific situation that you're in, so I can't really say too much about that. You also want to have the date of submission. submission. Chicago style uses proper dating style, which is 14 November 2020. Most historical readings and whatnot will actually do like date, month, year, written out like that. Helps you to keep it a little bit clearer, but again, it depends on your specific submission guidelines. Sometimes there's a word count here as well, and any other relevant information would go here. Next step is go to the first page of your actual document. So this is your title page. That's all that's on the title page. The first page of your document, I want to view one page at a time here. One page. I want to zoom back into 100%. Don't know why it does this. Anyway, the first page of your document is left justified, not centered, obviously. And what we're going to do first is actually talk about the page numbers. So if you double click the header, which is this space up here, it comes up with a whole bunch of header information. You want to do page number, top of page. Computer's being slow. Top page, plain number 3 is fine. You'll do your last name, so in my case, Armstrong, space, then the page number. Now, your title page doesn't have this information on it. You don't need that information on your title page. In fact, you want that information to be not on your title page, to not be on your title page. So you want to go up here to do design and click different first page. That will give you Armstrong 2 is, well, not you, Armstrong, but last name 2 as your main body page, and then the first title page will be blank. Now, further, the number here is supposed to be page number 1 because this is the first body page of your paper. So you go back to page number, format page numbers, start at, and rather than starting at 1, you want to go down, start at 0, hit OK. That will make your title page page 0. It won't show it still because you've got different first pages listed. But it will make the first page of the body of your paper page 1. And then you can just double click off that, and that's sorted for the rest of your paper, which we'll see on further pages. So like I said, the body text of your paper is left justified, but it's also indented by 1 indentation. So whatever you're writing here, just gonna, there you go. You can see I've now got 2 lines of gibberish. What you want is to have every single paragraph, the first line needs to be indented. Now, rather than doing what I just did, which is select in front of the first letter or first character and hit tab, what you can do is select that, go up to the paragraph, drop-down menu, pop out, paragraph settings, whatever, click that. Indentation, you want to go first line. That will indent the first line of every paragraph you have. If you copy, paste that, you'll see it's identical in terms of the first line is indented, second line is not. These are also, so like I said, they're double spaced. There's no, there should be no space after paragraph. No space after paragraph. It should still be double spaced though. Everything should be double spaced. I mean, even technically the title page, although I don't really think the title page matters. But if you just double space everything, then it's a little bit simpler and you don't have to worry about thinking about it. Cool. So, in terms of doing actual citations, we'll start maybe with the bibliography because the bibliography is more important than footnotes. I don't even know if I believe that. Okay. Anyway, so what you want to do is I recommend centering this. You want to have the word bibliography not tabbed over, not indented, centered. Bibliography compared to a works cited sheet for MLA, for example, this is a bibliography. Now, I also like to add a little bit of visual difference to this so that it's clearer. So I will usually do bold and underlined just to show where the bibliography starts. Your bibliographic entries are again left justified, not centered. However, these ones are slightly different. They are not, oops, that's the wrong button. they are not first line indented, they're hanging indented. I'm just going to put a letter here so it doesn't lose everything on me. So again, go to paragraph settings under special, hit first line, or first, sorry, hit it, hanging. Okay, that will provide the second line will be indented on your bibliography entries, which is proper bibliographic formatting. So I'm going to start with a book by two authors and an article by a single author. This book is one I use myself and using for my dissertation research by Glenn Wright and Desmond Morton and Glenn Wright, Winning the Second Battle, Canadian Veterans and the Return to Civilian Life. So I started with an M here because I knew this is the book I was going to cite. Bibliographic entries are last name, first name for the first author. So it would be Morton, comma, Desmond, and Glenn Wright, period. So the name of the first author is last name, first name. The name of the second author is first name, last name. Don't know why. Books are italicized, so Winning the Second Battle, colon for the subtitle, Canadian Veterans and the Return to Civilian Life, comma, 1915 to 1930. Unitalicized, then you do your period. Next is the publication information. This book was published by the University of Toronto Press in Toronto. So you want to go Toronto, colon, University of Toronto Press, UTP. Because I'm not submitting this, that's how I would do it. If you were submitting this as a paper, you would actually want to go University of Toronto Press, comma, year of publication, which is 1987. I'm double checking, but I know that because I've done this video a few times. Period. There's your citation, your bibliographic entry for a book. If it was a single author, it would just be Morton, Desmond, period. But because double author, we'll leave that in there. The next citation I have to do is Tom Gunning's The Whole Town's Gawking, Early Cinema and the Visual Experience of Modernity, which is an article. So, it is similar in many ways to a book. However, there are a few differences which we'll talk about. It is still last name, comma, first name, period. The title of an article or a chapter is in quotation marks, not italices. The Whole Town's Gawking, colon, Early Cinema and the Visual Experience of Modernity, period, quotation marks. Because this is an article, you want to cite the journal in italices. So the italicized button is up here. I just do Control I for italicize, Control B for bold, and Control U for underline. Again, I'm on Word on computer, on PC. So anyway, so italicized. This journal is the Yale Journal of Criticism, on italicized. Next information is the volume and number of that journal. So this volume is 7. Number 2. Now that is the way a lot of people will write this. I hate how that looks. I think it looks cluttered. I think it looks ugly. So what I do is to streamline things and make it still clear is I will just go 7:2. That's still clear. You always do volume and then number, so you don't have to worry about thinking about which is which. And it's just, I like it. It looks nicer. Anyway. Next up is you go parentheses, the date of publication. Now, I never do, like, the date of publication listed on here is January 1st, 1994. I don't ever do the day and month for journal articles because generally academic journals are only published quarterly at most. I don't know of a single journal, I can't think of a single history journal, anyway, off the top of my head, that is published more than 4 times a year. For newspapers, which are published weekly or multiple times a week, I definitely recommend doing an actual day just to make it a little bit easier. But in this case, I'm not going to, nor would I necessarily worry about that. This is all this information is in Rampla's book, which I'm just double checking right now because I want to look for something. Colon, yeah. Next up, you need the page range of the article. So you want to you close the parentheses, do colon, and then you do page range. This page range is 189 to, I believe it's 201, but I'm going to double check. Always double check, everybody. 201. And period. Make sure you have periods at the ends of your citations. It seems really simple and mundane and unimportant, but it's noticeable. It's the end of the citation. It's probably one of the more noticeable things about your citations. So make sure you actually have that finished off. So those are 2 completed bibliographic entries. Now, I generally recommend for a paper that is using primary and secondary sources that you separate these into their own categories. So what I would do is I would go primary first. We don't have any primary sources for this video, but I'll put a section here for it. I would do primary sources first. I would make it just underlined to give it a little bit of visual difference from bibliography, but also some from the citations, and I would keep it centered. And then I would do secondary. In that primary section, again, these would be obviously not underlined, and your citation would be here, so whatever it would be, historical debates of Canada, and then all that information. Yeah, let's see. It would also be a hanging indentation there. So there's your bibliography page. Make sure this starts at the beginning of this page so that it looks cleaner and it's just easier to find and organize. Okay, back to the actual body of the paper here. Let's do a couple of citations and footnotes. So let's flip to a random page in Morton's book. So this is super, super general content that I'm citing here. I'm just looking for a book stand because I don't have the book stand up. I'll use my old book stand. This is general information. This is not something that I would actually cite if I was using this book. Just open it to a random page. But let's say this is a new sentence, and I have properly I've properly embedded the information in, like I've introduced and all that fun stuff. Probably introduced this information, where it's coming from. On page 154, Morton and Wright tell us that there's a depression of 1921 that undid a whole bunch of work by these people. What I'm going to write here is there was an economic depression in 1921, period. Let's say that's the information I'm citing from Glenn and Wright, from Morton and Wright. What we're going to do now is we're going to add a footnote. So you can do this by going up to references. If my computer will work. There's other ways to do this as well. You can use hotkeys, which I normally do, but in this case, I'm just going up here. You can insert a footnote or an endnote. I personally prefer footnotes. I find it easier to use. I hate endnotes. However, talk to your grader about what you're doing specifically. The shortcut for this is Alt-Control-F, which is what I normally use. That will create a little separate section of the text down here that will be unaffected by whatever you do to the body of your paper. It's really important that you do this properly so you don't have to do a whole bunch of finicking with the formatting afterwards. First thing to do when you get this, I'm going to zoom in a bit here because it's smaller font. So first thing you do, I guess I could always zoom in. Anyway, first thing you do is go over in front of the footnote number and tab over once. Footnotes are indented. The first line is indented. And while I'm sure you could go through and actually set that up with the paragraph settings as first line indentation, I've never actually done that for whatever reason. I think this is just what I've always done because I never think of setting it up as its own formatting. Anyway, that information comes from page 154, pardon me, we'll write Morton and Wright's book. So what we're going to do is we're going to write a footnote citation for it. They're slightly different from bibliographic citations, and so I'm going to rewrite the whole thing. That goes first name, last name, no comma, and Glenn Wright. Again, oops, that's not how you spell right. The name of the second author is still first name, last name. Instead of it being period here, it's a comma, and then italicized, and it's the title of the book again. Winning the second battle, colon, Canadian veterans and the, we'll go back to that and fix that, return to civilian life, 1915 to 1930. I missed a space there. Again, this title is italicized, and then you want to unitalicize to hit your, to go to the next section. This is, again, the publication information, but it's in parentheses. So bracket, parentheses, publishing city, colon, publisher. Again, you write the full thing out, but I'm just doing the short form. Comma, year of publication, 1987. Close parentheses. I'm double checking my handy dandy Rampola, because I believe it's comma. Yeah. Comma, page number. So like I said, 154, period. Now, there's your citation for a footnote. Let's say you have a second footnote that is the same book at any other point in this article, essay, paper, whatever, and it's on a different page. It could be even following. And this is how I always write these subsequent citations. We're going to go to page 182. So you got a whole bunch of text in between here, whatever. Your next, the thing I'm going to cite is that there was a Japanese Canadian branch of the Great War Veterans Association, period. So that's the information I'm citing. I'm getting that from page 182 of Morton and Wright's book. So you can do a second footnote. Again, tab over. However, this time you do not need to cite the entire citation. You can, it is falling out of favor with most historians, with most graders, and in fact the Chicago Manual of Style is removing ibid from its next edition, which is number 18, I believe. But you can do ibid and then a page number. I hate ibid personally, and I won't dock marks for people using ibid when I mark papers, but I hate it with a special kind of passion. So what I recommend is using a shortened form of citation, which is just last name. In this case, because there's two authors, you do Morton and Wright. If it was just Desmond Morton's book, it would just be Morton, comma, shortened title, which is again italicized, but winning the second battle, comma, page number, 182. So you can see how much shorter that is. It's just the relevant information, seeing as you already have the main footnote there, and you have the bibliographic entry later on. This just kind of cleans things up, makes it easier and shorter for you to be able to cite things moving forward. It does make things complicated if you don't write from beginning to end, because you can sometimes end up with a full citation at the bottom of your paper, but the first citation in your actual paper for that same book is a shortened citation, so that it can take some finagling, but that is the way that's proper citation style right there. So let's say you've written some more, and then your paper somehow takes a hard turn into a different topic in terms of these articles I have here. How do you cite an article as a footnote? So I'm going to use this as an example, as a way of doing a couple different things. One is footnoting a quotation. The other is footnoting a quotation where we take a whole bunch of the center of the quote out, and using a quotation that is also part of a quote from the author in that article. That's an unclear sentence that I just said, but it'll come clear when I'm talking here. So we're going to use, like I said, Tom Gunning's article, The Whole Town's Gawking. if we were just going to cite it, it's fairly similar to a book. However, let's do a quotation. So we want to properly, why can't I think of that word? We want to properly, so we want to properly contextualize the quotation that we're making, so that we explain why it's there and that it makes sense, and it also flows properly. Now, I'm not going to really do that here, but make sure you're doing that when you're actually writing your paper. The quote I'm going to use is from his page 190 to 191. In this case, I will go, Gunning writes that, and then quotations. The 1906 Hepworth catalog. We're going to cut out a whole bunch of information. So to do that, you use an ellipses, which is 3 periods, and then you can continue writing. Describes the close up as an attraction, colon. That's on his paper. Now, he starts a quotation here from the Hepworth catalog in 1906. When we quote from a source, in our paper, it's double quotation marks. If that paper has a quote that we want to use, we then use single quotation marks. So, in this case, his quote, the quote that he took from this catalog is, a human face shown the full size of the screen is always a comic and interesting sight. Close quotation marks. Because he's got double quotation marks around that quote, we use single quotation marks here. A full human face. I'm just going to cut out a whole bunch of it because you don't need the full quote. Another ellipses is always a comic and interesting sight. Okay, so period. You want to close the quotation that he used. Now, because this is also the end of our quotation, we double quotation marks that. So there are 3 quotation marks at the end of the sentence. That's important because that closes both quotations. It's kind of confusing, and it can mess everything up if you have 2 quotation marks side by side sometimes. But just keep in mind that that's the proper, no matter how weird it looks, that is proper citation. We then put the footnote in. So, tab that over. Again, so first name, Tom Gunning, comma. We do quotation marks. The whole, oops, that's not how you spell that word. Towns docking. I gotta get the actual thing now. There we go. Again, this would be probably easier to copy the bibliographic entry into the footnote and then change it. However, just to highlight the way to do this, I'm doing it a more complicated way. The whole town's gawking. Early cinema. Yep. And the visual experience of modernity. Again, close quotation marks. Comma, close quotation marks. Journal, the Yale Journal of Criticism. On italicized, volume, number, date, which I forgot, 1994. Close parentheses, colon, page number or page range. In this case, this quotation was not only a little bit of a complex quotation, but it also spanned 2 pages. It went from page 190 to 191. So you simply write that, 190-191, period. A lot of people will go 190-1. I don't think that's as clear, so I do the full thing because I'm a pain in the butt. And then that is your footnote for an article. A chapter is very similar. It would be the chapter title in quotation marks, the book title, where the journal is, and then you would also have the editor information before the, right after the title of the book. But there's lots of places you can find that information as well. Beyond that, everything you can find all this information from a few different sites. If you Google OWL at Purdue, Chicago style, they have really good resources for learning how to do this. There's lots of stuff on YouTube as well, which is where this will be or is. Um, and like I said, pick up a book. Marilyn Ramplow's book is by far the best book on how to do Chicago style for students. I use it constantly. It is always, I mean, I have multiple copies. It's always in my desk or in my backpack. So um, beyond that, I hope this is helpful. If it has been, please let me know. I would appreciate that. Oh, actually, one last thing I will cover is in terms of formatting, you want to make sure that this is all cleaned up, right? So um, you want to make sure that your bibliography page is um, lined up properly. You don't want it like this, and you don't like it was, which is way down the page. You want to have it the first line and all that fun stuff. Okay, cool. I think that's it. I hope this was helpful for you, and happy writing.